Today's episode is brought to us by On the Clock. On the Clock is an online time clock software that provides small businesses with a solution to track employee hours worked while making the payroll process simple and efficient for all of the accountants like you since 2004. By becoming certified with On the Clock's accounting program and using the software for free, it is a great way to place accounting firm owners like you in front of 10,000 and increasing potential clients. Accountants will enjoy additional benefits that include access to their clients' employee time card data for processing payroll, option to be listed as a trusted pro in the marketplace, and providing your clients with 20% off the On the Clock time clock software. To learn more, head on over to ontheclock.com. I also want to share an accountant story. His name's Steven. He's a client of On the Clock. He saves an average of 1 to 6 hours per client per pay period by no longer having to verify paper punches and tracking down information from his business clients. So check it out. You really got nothing to lose, only a bunch of clients to maybe gain over at ontheclock.com. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast, where all accountants come to learn all the ways to grow your firm. And when you're in doubt, I am here to help you out. So if you're ready to learn and ready to grow your firm, then you're in the right place to sharpen your skills and increase your revenue. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accountants come to learn all the ways they can grow their firms. And before we welcome our very special guest to the show, I just want to share that over the last 3 years, I've been perfecting something called our Selling Without Ever Selling system. And up until now, only my high-end clients have had access to this information. But I'm so excited about sharing this with more of you. So I am offering you a free coaching session to discover the possibilities you have within your firm. The system is all about getting you quality, ideal clients coming to you and finally getting paid what you're worth so you can build your dream practice and still have the time and money to enjoy with your family and kids. So if you're frustrated and stressed because what you've been doing isn't working anymore, you feel like you have no confidence when it comes to sharing your fees, and you really want to charge more for your clients, and you don't believe you could ever double your firm revenue, then this free coaching session is for you. To explore more, head on over to theabundantcall.com and book your session. You'll either talk to myself or my partner, Denise. And today on the Abundant Accountant Podcast, we have a very special guest. Our special guest is David. He is the renegade CEO behind Jetpack Workflow. He has the software platform that helps accounting and tax professionals track all their current work without any worries. Since inception, he has led the company to grow over 600% in the last 4 years and serves thousands of accounting firms in 18 plus different countries. He is also the best-selling co-author of Double Your Accounting Firm, and he also has a podcast that you're probably aware of called Growing Your Firm Podcast. He lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with his family, and now let's welcome David to the show.
Hey, Michelle, super excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here with us on the Abundant Accountant Podcast. It's a true honor to have you here. And before we dive in, can you just share with the listeners who you are, what you created? A lot of them might know you. So could you just real quick, I've already done your intro, but I always think it's great to come from you just so we can hear it personally from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow. It's a cloud-based application that helps accounting firms, bookkeeping firms track all of the recurring client deadlines and due dates so that nothing falls through the cracks. I'm also the co-author of a book called Double Your Accounting Firm and host a podcast called Growing Your Firm. So I am just totally driven by trying to solve painful problems, create interesting products or resources for the accounting community. And, obviously excited to be here to chat about some of our learnings and journeys as a company.
Yes, for sure. And I love how you said, solve some of our painful problems. And I think today, we're going to be talking about, how did you create abundance in your life and in, your your business and really being able to help your clients and all of the accountants listening become more productive and also help with the recurrent. I love because what you provide to them helps the sales piece, right? If we miss follow-ups, we miss deadlines, we miss anything with our clients, it ruins the sales experience. So you are able to help people be more productive and more effective in a way. And I know today we're going to talk about the difference between being productive versus being busy. And we're going to talk about what's the difference between being busy yet being effective. So I'm really excited to dive into those topics today because my mission is to help, each one of you listening have the firm of abundance, meaning get paid what you want to get paid, and also have a process and system in place so, you can enjoy your life and not work so much. So David, let's start with being productive. What do you think? I think that's a very important thing because a lot of people are, I think the biggest, since you're solving painful problems, okay? The biggest problem I hear consistently, even from the people I've worked with in my 8-week sales mastery training or my accountability groups, is it's just overwhelming with the amount of work you have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like you mentioned, I think if you end up mastering sales, marketing, firm growth, you typically fall into a fulfillment trap where you no longer can grow your firm because you're doing so much of the work, or you have a team, but you're putting out so many fires. So you have to do that. Then the firm doesn't grow as much. And then you figure that out, but the firm growth has subsided. So you have to go back into it. So it really creates this boomerang effect a lot if you don't kind of figure out what are the right things you should be working on as a firm owner. There's a great, and I'll paraphrase a little bit, the old management guru, Peter Drucker, said efficiency is doing things right, while effectiveness is doing the right thing. So a very clear example of that, and this happens a lot. It happens with me. It happens with all the firms we work with. I'm sure it happens a lot in your community. And, one firm owner that comes to mind where this was apparent and they really cracked the code on it was they were going into tax season. And right before tax season, their one only team member, decided they were done with tax season and they quit. It's a couple weeks before they were going into tax season, and they didn't have enough time to, bring on an additional person. So the two partners had to take a step back. One partner's name is Susan, and Susan had to take a step back and say, okay, well, we don't want to turn clients away. We want to do just as much work as we did year over year. But now we have to do it with one less team member. And this is a team of 3. So losing one person is always challenging. But when it's 3 people and you lose one, you're down to 2. It's a really big deal.
Yeah.
And they looked at their system, and what they realized is, and full disclosure, they were busy. They were busy at 3 people, and they're about to be really busy at 2 people, right? If you're busy at 3 and you downsize to 2, unforeseen, you're going to be extremely busy. But they said, is there some way we can enhance the system to work and be a little bit more thoughtful, be a little bit more productive, and make sure we're doing the right thing? As a partner, you want to be doing the high-level client work. You want to be go out and doing consultations or landing new deals. And, one thing they found, and this is one of the biggest things they found in their workflow, was they kept starting work without getting all the materials they needed from the clients. And early on, it's a very innocent thing to do, right? You because you're so hungry when you start your firm, the clients give you anything. You want to jump in, you want to start helping them, you want to start, doing the tax return, closing the books, whatever it may be. But as you continue to grow, what happens is that creates a large inefficiency in your business. And so what they realized is that they were starting a tax return, going halfway through it, stopping, going back to the client, chasing them down. Client wasn't responding. They do the client chase. Client would finally get them the materials. They would bring it back, and they would have to get regrounded in what this tax return was and what they were doing. And again, early on, not a big deal. As you grow, as you get more clients, it becomes a really big deal. And they put one step into their workflow. They put a step that just said, did we get all the materials from the client? It was a little quality assurance step, QA step. And Susan, in this case, said, look, I'll take that step. I'll make sure we get all the stuff for clients before passing it along to our partner to do the return. And they put that step in. They asked the client how they want to be communicated with. So they said, do you want to be called, text, or email? And if, by the way, if you, whatever you respond with, we're assuming that you're going to respond back in a timely manner. So they essentially did those two changes.
Yeah.
They were able to complete slightly more in terms of tax returns, actually significantly more tax returns, didn't work anymore year over year. So you can imagine what that did for their bottom line and their profitability. And the best thing is with this, kind of working smarter mindset where they just put that one QA step, because that was just costing them so much time that now as they continue to grow, they probably are in a better place to hire somebody to take over that part of the workflow if they want, or they could just stay the two of them and now they have a significantly more profitable firm by doing this. But that's a clear example where they just took one little piece and they said, how do we make this slightly better so we could get the same output without, running around with our hair on fire?
Yeah. So I have a question, David, about the story with Susan, because I always think about, what if that employee or person never quit, right before tax season? My guess is they probably would have never implemented this QA step, and then they would still be less productive, less efficient. So their efficiency actually improved. It's almost like, what happened whenever you're listening to this. If you were alive in 2020 between March and June, you all know what happened in the world, right? It's almost like the pandemic had people rethink and revisit how they operate their life, their business, the choices, how they value the time with their family and their kids, even if their work has decreased or went on pause. And the person quitting created an opportunity to improve productivity and, like you said, work smarter. And, for everyone listening, it's like, where can you maybe make this implementation? Because it's a lot easier to do it, David, when people just quit on us, or, the government tells you to stay at home orders and all this stuff. But what do you recommend someone who's listening today to think about? I mean, even in my sales process that I teach this, David, tell me what you think about it. But if they don't get the documents to you, and I always recommend you put a timeline on it. So it's like, welcome to ABC tax firm. Can't wait to get started. We need your documentation uploaded to the secure server no later within the next 24 to 48 hours. And then, if you're going to do a phone consultation or a meeting, if you don't have those documentations, your QA step, actually teach people to cancel the meeting and cancel the call, because it's not probably a client you want to work with. It's a great way to sift through the clients that, I don't know if Susan actually was able to see, wow, there were some people we don't need to actually be working with anymore.
Well, I think the more you can do to set expectations and to be very specific about what you want from your client and when you want it and how you want to receive it, I think if there's any ambiguity to that communication with your client, the client's just going to go off and do whatever's most convenient, which in most cases is do nothing, right? Because they're not waking up every day saying, how do I get stuff to my accountant? That's not what they're worried about. And it's not really their job to build out the instruction manual or create a process for how they should interact with you.
Yeah.
So I think the more specific, even during, the new onboarding of the client, this is the tool set we use. You're going to get logins to ABC. We typically start requesting tax files on January 25th. And, we expect those to be returned by 10 days. We'll have a check-in call, the more you can outline and then kind of reinforce it. And I think there's a way, if the client doesn't get you the materials, there's a polite way to have that conversation. Say, look, just out of respect for the rest of our clients and to make sure we deliver you the best service possible, we could not begin this deliverable until we get A, B, and C. And I also know a lot of firms that if a client keeps dragging their feet and they're not submitting the information on time, they'll either charge them more, which I've known some firms will do, or they'll say, look, if you don't get us all the materials by February 20th, we're going to put you in an extended deadline by default. Yeah. And so they don't have, I remember talking with one firm owner, it was April 5th. This is obviously in a world where tax season was still April 15th, which is not this year. But I was talking with him, it was early April. And I said, oh man, how are you doing, in the final sprint? And he's like, great. He's like, I tell all my clients, if we don't get their stuff in by March, whenever, that we're just going to put them into an extension. And he was great. And it took him years to realize that he could make that call. And you wouldn't have upset clients. I mean, you might have one or two, but like you said, you really want them as clients. The majority understand rules and expectations, and the majority of clients want to be led by the firm and the firm owner. I mean, they're coming to you as the expert. So the more you guide them, I think the better off you'll be. So I'm totally aligned. I think the more information you give somebody with specific dates and specific deliverables in the most convenient way possible to get those over to you is the ideal outcome.
100%. So I have to ask, because this is the Abundant Accountant podcast, and abundant meaning like an abundant bank account. How did Susan's top line revenue pan out?
So she grew. So Susan Wilson's firm and her partner, Rochelle, they grew year over year, slightly over 10%, but profits increased, I want to say at least 20%, so doubled. I'm sorry, it significantly improved their revenue and significantly improved their profit. So they actually grew top line. And of course, because they didn't have to backfill that team member, they grew their profit as well.
Yeah.
And like you said, here's the kicker. The profit was always there. And I think it's a common trap for firm owners. They come across a problem. Oh, we're really busy with work. I've made this mistake. I think almost every business owner makes this mistake. Get really busy. You're growing. Things are going well. You're like, goodness gracious, I need to hire somebody. And you hire somebody, and then you get busy again. You hire somebody, you get busy again. You keep hiring and hiring and hiring, and you don't realize that you're like building your firm on kind of a suboptimal foundation. And, Susan's example is just one small example of like adding the QA step. But I think it's much more glamorous to go out, and I have nothing against hiring people, my goodness, but I think it's much more glamorous to go out and keep hiring, because then you get to go to networking events and say, yeah, we have 8 team members or we have 12 staff members, versus like, we have the same team size, but we're dramatically more profitable. We have less stress. We're less anxious. We have better work-life balance, and we run a really great system. It takes a while, I think, for the firm owner mentality to shift from, hiring people to solve all my problems to like how to think about a system that could solve the problem.
Yeah. And, in Susan's case, the person quitting before tax season, and this has happened to a lot of, the clients that I've worked with and the accountants that I've seen firsthand. Someone's going to quit all the time. I always like to, keep the mindset of that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity to improve profitability. Will it kind of suck in the moment and be overwhelming? Yeah, for sure. I don't know. What did Susan say? How did she feel during the process? And then how did she feel at the end? Could you share that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Early on, it's complete terror. You're scared.
Yeah.
You're like, you relied on this person. They were there for a reason. They worked their butts off during tax season. They're there in the, more or less 60-hour work weeks. And so when that person says they're not coming back and it's too late to rehire somebody, you're just thinking to yourself, goodness gracious. Okay, so for the next 4 months, is it my partner and I are working 100-hour weeks? And I think the question Susan asked was, what would have to be true for us to not work anymore, but continue to take on our existing client base? Flip the question and say, what would have to be true, or what would it take to have the same number of clients with one less team member? Or if you want to be a little bit more, I don't know, for lack of a better word, I guess abundant, you could say, how can we double our client base or double our revenue without hiring a single person?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And the thought exercise is really, really important. And maybe you just say, hey, we should just raise our prices. Maybe that's like the way you get halfway there. I mean, who knows? But you start asking that question, and it starts forcing that creative output as a firm owner to, think about, okay, we're going to raise prices. Maybe we do joint ventures or affiliates. Maybe we improve our sales process, which improves our consultation close rate.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like training increases revenue, referrals increases revenue. So I think asking smarter questions really, really helps the firm owner. There's another firm owner. He grew his profit margin by 20% in the first 12 months when he was using our system. And he just applied a simple tactic of every month, he would look at when was something done and when was it due? When was it done? When was it due? He would open up the job, and if you have a spreadsheet, you could use a spreadsheet, you could use whatever you want. And he would open up everything that was completed, and he would look to see where things were getting stuck, where the team was talking about areas they couldn't find client information, or they were unsure how to complete a certain step. And he would just look at this every month. And anytime people were stuck or anytime they missed a deadline, he would figure out why. And he would update the checklist. He would update the process. He would update where they find information. You do this every month for a year, and you wake up one day, your profit margin is dramatically improved. And that's exactly what it did. But it all started with done versus do, and how do we meet our deadlines?
Yeah, no, I think it's so important. There's so many ways you can slice this and dice it, but I know it's scary for a lot of people. And like you said, for Susan, it was like complete terror. But these are the opportunities to make your life so much better and so much less chaotic and stressful. So back to the Susan story, David, because I want to differentiate being productive, being busy, and being effective, right? Like there's all these things and definitions on, people are like, oh yeah, we're really productive. Oh my gosh, we're so busy. But how do you know if you're really effective?
Yeah, well, I think it's first defining what is the right thing that you uniquely, the firm owner, partner, leader, needs to be doing. So I'll tell a quick story about this. So about 2-ish years ago, maybe 18 months, as a firm owner in our neighboring state, I'm based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He's in Ohio. Sitting with him, and we're talking about his firm. And I've always looked at his firm and just said, man, he is doing exceptionally well, 7-figure firm, really having a lot of fun, with the team, with his clients, with his community. I was talking with him, and he was actually pretty down about his firm. And he had gotten an offer, an acquisition offer, which I'll assume it's at least 7 figures for his firm. And, I could tell he was struggling with that offer. It's not a trivial amount of money and he's quite young. So there's a lot of money very early on in his life. And he was just struggling on whether or not he should sell. And he's actually thinking about selling. And I could just tell he didn't want to sell. So we started talking about it. I said, well, what are you doing? Walk me through a typical week. What I found out was, he was, answering incoming calls. Wow. He was still doing a number of, he was doing some client work. And, so he was extremely busy. And, that's amazing. But he's the owner of the firm. It's like, what should you be doing? And in most cases, around 7-figure mark, he's probably spending a lot of time bringing in deals, closing deals, maybe expanding client services or upselling client services, thinking about team culture, thinking about how to invest their time and money, the cash flow that's coming out of the firm, kind of transitioning into a lot of CEO level work even. And he was answering the phone calls. He was still doing some client services. And we started talking, and long story short, it's like, you have to cash, invest it back into your firm, get somebody to answer the phones. And, you keep talking about the client services, and he fell into a trap I think a lot of firm owners fall into. He goes, well, I'm doing them because I've always done them for these clients. And I have a feeling like they expect me to do these services for them. Yeah. And I'm so scared that if I let them go, I'm letting my friend down, my client down. They have been working with so long, and they took a bet on me, and they took a bet on my firm. And that's why I keep doing the work. And we started digging into it and realized him still doing the work made it that the work quality was suffering and the turnaround time was suffering. He was doing so many other things that when the client work was coming in, he felt like he needed to take care of it, but he couldn't take care of it in a timely manner. So they were getting worse off service delivery. And so what we kind of brainstormed in that moment was, why doesn't he essentially train up one of his team members that's been with him for a while to take on that work? It was a great advancement opportunity for one of his team members. It's a great retention mechanism for him as an owner to kind of, bring a team member up and train them on maybe some higher level client services. And he was able to take a step back. Fast forward 6 months, and he's launching a new business. He's keeping his firm. He's not going anywhere.
He didn't sell it?
He didn't sell it because he loves it. And I think that's a really simple, I'll talk about, a more practical way to gauge your time, but I think that's a really simple way. It's just like, where do you see your energy being elevated and where do you see it being drained? Yeah. I think it's a very simple way to say, like, where it's drained, good news and bad news is you're the owner, you're creating the universe you live in, and this is your utopia. If it's draining you, figure out how to cut it, how to delegate it, or how to defer it, right? If you can defer it, like do one of those 3 things. The more quantifiable way, things we talked about in the past, is map out your time for a week and see what you're doing. And there's generally 4 buckets, when we think about firm owners' time that we think about. The first one is, what are you doing that's really admin level work? Follow-up phone calls, client chase, incoming calls, booking travel arrangements, scheduling, conferences or whatever it may be, that's about, call it $10 an hour work, right? $100 hour work is probably doing the accounting work, right?
Yep.
Doing some of the tax returns, doing the monthly books, doing payroll, doing CFO services. I'd even put in there, even if you
Yep.
bill higher than $100 an hour, I could hear people saying, well, it's more like 200 or whatever. We'll call it 100.
Anything between 100 and like probably I would even say up to 500, David, because okay, good. Anything like that is all in that bucket for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can play with the numbers if you will. So the next bucket is, I'll call it $500 an hour. And that's really kind of being the manager of the business. And that's maybe thinking about creating processes, creating checklists, creating standards and expectations for your team. And then there's the kind of the next level, which is call it $5,000 an hour. And that's where you're thinking about what's the right niche I should be in, what's the right pricing mechanism we should deliver to our market, what's the right positioning or value statement or unique selling proposition we want to bring to the market. I mean, this is time where you spend an hour thinking about these things, and it's probably way more than $5,000 if you define the niche or things like that.
100%.
And I think for the firm owner, map out your week and ask yourself which bucket you're falling into. And we hear all this lingo about, well, you got to work on your business and not just in. Well, the most quantifiable way to see if you're working on it is the first two buckets I mentioned are working in your firm. So doing the admin work, doing the accounting work. The next two buckets are working on your firm, kind of the management level category and the kind of CEO or investment category. So, that's the best way. If you're spending all of your time working in it, you're going to have an incredibly hard time getting to kind of the business or firm success you want to get to. Because if you're not building systems, if you're not leveling up the team skills, if you're not defining your niche, if you're not coming to the market with a unique selling proposition, it's going to be really, really hard to grow. So you need to find a way to prioritize that in your week and give your space to think about it.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to, once a quarter, or if you can't do it that often, every 6 months, do an inventory of your week. That's basically what you're saying. Map out the week, because this is the only way you'll get a reality check. And just something personal that I've done, I'm going like really deep on my nutrition and part of this group for like 4 months. And you have to track your food for a whole week and make sure that you're eating 80 to 90% real food, like things that farmers and, people back in the day could find in the ground. And you had to put in a spreadsheet. I put in a spreadsheet and calculate the percentage of like what was real food, what wasn't. And it doesn't matter what area in your life you're focusing on, but if your business creates your livelihood and the lifestyle that you're looking for, map out a week, right? Take an inventory on where you're really investing your time. And I think it's so important, David. And can you share, just in case someone doesn't know, how your services could really support them in this? Because I think what you do could really be an eye-opener, like it was, for Susan and others who have used the workflow and really have made an impact in their business.
Yeah, absolutely. So just one final note to kind of wrap up the time scheduling aspect, and before we segue into Jetpack Workflow, is one thing a shift I've made for myself, and I've tried to distill it to the company and to the firms, is instead of saying I don't have time, say it's not a priority for me. And you will realize, it could be exercise, it could be working on your firm, it could be doing whatever it may be. And when you say I don't have time, that's not true. We all have time. It's just not a priority. And I think by using words that are maybe a little bit more honest, it really opens up our eyes to make changes.
I love that. I'm going to start using that. I'll report back to you.
It's very uncomfortable, right? Because it's like, and it could be whatever, personal or professional. Instead of saying, I just say, I haven't made a priority to plan X, Y, and Z. And when you say that out loud, you're like, goodness gracious, that's horrible. I should make it a priority. And it sparks some change. So, I would recommend a lot of, firm owners think about it in that way. From Jetpack Workflow's perspective, so like I mentioned earlier, we're a cloud-based software application. And what we enable firms to do is, standardize and document everything that's going on in your firm. So we get everything out of your brain. We put it into a tool that everybody could see it and access it. We allow you to take these templates and, distribute those or duplicate those out to all of your clients. So you create the templates. We have a simple way for you to assign that out to your clients. So you have 100 clients, 1,000 clients, 10,000 clients. To duplicate those out takes about 20 seconds, regardless of how many clients you have.
Mm-hmm.
And then we give you a single place to view all the work that is going on and have the visual of what your firm is doing, what everybody is working on, what you should be working on, what your team should be working on. And if they get stuck, we've added a level of collaboration tools and labels so everybody can visualize maybe blockers or levels of urgency. Or if you need to talk to a team member, you can talk to a team member using some of our notes features inside of the app. So you standardize everything, roll it out to your clients, and we give you a simple way to track everything and view everything that's going on in your firm.
Well, thank you so much, David, for being here with us. There were so many golden nuggets. I can't wait to even use some of the last stuff we just talked about. What I've not made a priority to do today? What do I keep putting off? Or, like you said, it's not a priority instead of I just don't have the time, and see what shifts. And I always think it's important to get comfortable being uncomfortable. So thank you so much for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast. It was an honor to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. If anybody wants to learn about me, the story, or Jetpack Workflow, it's just jetpackworkflow.com. And thanks for having me.
What an amazing episode with David. I love people who are super efficient, effective, productive, and all those words, right? But I think the biggest takeaway that I heard are two things. Number one, if you need to outsource your inbound calls, our sponsor, either right now or I'm not sure when you're listening to this, is Abby Connect. And I highly, highly recommend you call them, tell them you heard about it from me on the podcast. It's a free trial, but literally you can customize your whole service answering system with their custom receptionist. So you get a really small team dedicated to you and your firm. And this is something you can offload off your plate immediately. You don't need to hire anyone. You don't need to take on the overhead and the burden. So make sure to check out Abby Connect. That's step one. Step two, map out your week. Take an inventory on which bucket you're spending the most time in. So I know you all love spreadsheets, analytical flow charts. A lot of my accountants who who you are if you're listening, love my flow charts that I made. But what tasks are you doing that are admin related? What tasks are you doing in the business that's actually like the tax returns, the accounting work? Maybe the value of that time's between $100 to $499. What tasks are you spending that's, maybe more of the $500 an hour type work, right? So it's the manager type work. And then where are you spending the time in my favorite category, the $5,000 to $10,000 category of, your pricing, your niche, your unique selling proposition, your elevator pitch, your positioning, your follow-up process, your inbound process. All of your processes that end up making you more money, right? It's that 80-20 principle at place. And I would map out the week, take an inventory. And then if you say, I don't have time to do that, think about, well, it's just not a priority that you've made, and changing how you say that. So email me. I want to know some of these results after you take an inventory. So send me an email. My email, you can send it to is hello@thepitchqueen.com. And again, like you might have heard in the beginning, over the last couple years, I have been perfecting something called our Selling Without Ever Selling system. And up until now, actually, it's been 3 years, not 2, 3. Time flies. And up until now, typically only my higher end clients have had access to this. But I'm very excited that I am offering a complimentary coaching session with yours truly to discover the possibilities that you have within your firm and maybe where some cracks are. Like if you had a boat and you had some cracks and there's some holes in there, some water's leaking out. So where are you sinking? And our system is all about getting quality, ideal clients coming to you so you can finally get paid what you're worth, so you can build the dream practice of abundance that you've always wanted with the profitability like David and I talked about. So If you're frustrated and stressed because you've been doing what you've been doing and it's just not working anymore, or you feel like you actually have zero confidence when it comes to sharing the fees you really want to charge a client, or you don't believe you can increase your revenue, even double your revenue in your firm, then this session is for you. So head on over to theabundantcall.com. The only thing I ask is that you've been in business at least 2 years. And thank you all so much for joining me here on another episode. A reminder that today's episode was brought to us by On the Clock. And On the Clock is an online time clock software that provides small businesses with a solution to track employee hours worked while making the payroll process simple and efficient for all the accountants. That's you. They have been around since 2004. And by becoming certified with On the Clock's accounting program and using the software for free, it is a great way to place accounting firm owners like you in front of 10,000 and increasing potential clients. So accountants will enjoy the additional benefits that include access to their clients' employee time card data for processing payroll, options to be listed as a trusted pro in the marketplace, and providing clients with 20% off On the Clock's time clock software. So to learn more, try it out. It's complimentary over at ontheclock.com. You only have got stuff to gain. You get in front of up to 10,000 and increasing potential clients. Also, the time saver for you, an accountant, one of the On the Clock clients, Steven, remember, he saved 1 to 6 hours per client per pay period and no longer had to verify paper punches and track information down, because who has time for that? So go to ontheclock.com, check it out, enroll, become certified, and let me know how it is. So ontheclock.com, and I will see you in the next episode.